Well, I mean, I have you to thank or blame for this, for this idea.
This is Fright-Rags presents
This is Fright-Rags Presents.
Booze and Booze.
That's right.
Okay, so the horror movie that this podcast, this bourbon podcast is framed, the Booze and Booze podcast is framed around, I would say is the first episode of Roger Corman's Tales of Terror.
Okay.
Okay, for those who don't know this old movie, it's three Edgar Allan Poe stories, and the first one is called The Black Cat, and it's a amalgam of the cast of Amontillado and The Black Cat, the Poe stories. Really a good one. You are Vincent Price. Vincent Price played an effete wine connoisseur.
Ah, yes.
He can tell any wine.
Right.
Then I'm Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre is a drunkard, a wine who doesn't get along with his wife because he's such a irascible character. And he bumps into Vincent Price, and they get into a little conflict, and they end up at the sophisticated wine event in a challenge of who's the best at identifying the vintage and the varietal of the wine. And of course, Vincent Price gets there and he puts the wine in a little thing and he spits it out. Then he says, Chateau Lafite, blah, blah, 1823, passable. And then Peter Lorre takes the wine and says, hey, pour me more. He gulps it down and says, Margaux Vineyards, 1843, very good. Why don't we have a little drink? Here's what you sent me. 3 anonymous vials.
Correct.
Of bourbon.
That's
then
correct.
you sent me a box.
Yep.
Which has very she.
Well, if you're going to taste, you got to taste in style.
That you said are like, the elite way to drink bourbon.
Yes.
I'm sure George Dickel and all these great wine bourbon makers, right. I'm sure they drank out of something.
Oh, I'm quite sure.
Either they did or the King of France did,
Right.
Or the Vincent Price character in Tales of Terror.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have 3 glasses.
Yeah.
And then we have the key, the code, which reveals each of the bottles of bourbon, each of the tastes. Okay, so shall we do number 1?
Yes, pour it in a glass, and then we'll get to sniffing it, tasting it, and the whole deal.
So, do you have yours?
I do have mine. Same one.
Okay.
So, what are you smelling in this?
I don't know. I'm getting a little Texas chainsaw here. I'm feeling a little dry madness.
It's kind of funny you say that.
A little leather here.
Yep.
I'm getting a little leather face.
I like that you said Texas chainsaw, actually, because when we reveal what this is, and I don't want to go there obviously just yet, I think it makes a little sense. It's funny you said that because now you put to words what I always smell in this particular bourbon, and I can almost smell, like with Texas chainsaw, you know how you can feel the heat coming off the screen. Every time I watch it, you feel them. I mean, that I know that shoot was awful for them. I feel it's not this spice heat, but there's a sense of heat here, a little toasted quality to it. A little bit of spice, but maybe my mind goes to, because I know what it is, my mind kind of tends to think about where it's being aged and that type of thing. You can take a sip.
Mhm.
So the company that makes this actually sources their juice from a place called MGP or Ross and Squibb. But MGP, it's a big place in Indiana that creates millions of barrels a year. And there are a lot of non-distiller producers that actually buy certain barrels and then they age them, or they'll age and mix them, that type of thing. This is a straight bourbon whiskey. It's batched, but then they age it in their rick houses in this particular place. So they're
Okay. Let's get into the definitions here. What is a
yeah.
straight bourbon as opposed to a crooked bourbon?
Well, it's not finished in anything. It's basically
It's not finished in another barrel.
exactly. It's not double barreled. It's not finished in a different type of barrel, like a different type of wood. It is at least 51% corn. It's finished in brand new oak, charred oak barrels. This is a nice sipping whiskey. I mean, this is a nice one to start out with. It's, 92.5 proof. It's pretty, I consider it pretty light. It's not gonna knock your socks off. It's not gonna like, destroy your palate before you get into anything else. I like a lot of proofier stuff, but it's hard to drink a lot of that stuff because, you're pouring this much of like 100. I mean, I have some bourbons that are 130, 140 proof. So you're getting into 60, 70% alcohol. They taste great, but you can't
And
be
where do
drinking.
you get the bigger flavor from the nose or from the tongue?
It's different with different whiskeys, I feel. So this is, to me, I still feel is very light. It's a nice sipper. I get a little heat on the back on the finish. I'm getting a little pepper spice as I swallow. It doesn't give me that Kentucky hug, they call it, when it burns you in the chest,
As I
Um,
call it, Kentucky
Kentucky hug. But I feel
maybe called the face hugger.
right.
I guess
That's like,
the
hey, you know what? That's
the
great. It's a
chest
face hug.
first. I think we're
Chest
into
burster.
alien now.
Yeah, so
I think we don't call it the Kentucky hug.
we're gonna call it either the face hugger into a chest burster if it's too
Yeah.
proofy. That's a good idea.
So
I'm,
do you find the nose gives you something different from the tongue or whatever?
yeah, there are times that I do that I'll get something off the nose where I'm like, oh, this is gonna be super oaky or super like rye. Sometimes I'll get a lot of mint on the nose, but that won't necessarily translate to the palate. And that can happen a lot where a whiskey or bourbon doesn't translate on the palate. When you smell it, you're like, oh my God, this smells amazing. And you go to taste it and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I was expecting. This, I don't know about you. Tell me your opinion. I think the nose and the palate are pretty much what you smell is what you get, and what you get on the taste. What do you think?
I think so. I mean, once you get past the burning part of the
Right,
nose and the burning part of the tongue,
right.
I guess once you're starting to drink, those things get numbed and maybe the flavor comes out more because I'm always get first now the nose isn't it's not burning like it did when I
Yeah.
first poured
Some of the ethanol sort
it.
of,
Taking over.
yeah,
And
exactly.
when I first
Well,
drank it,
these glasses try to concentrate the flavors into the ball, but that can concentrate some of the ethanol sometimes. And, sometimes it has to kind of sit for a minute and it'll dissipate a little bit more so you can get more of the flavors and not so much of the burniness of it. And
so
that's
the,
one of the reasons why I like starting off with
so
like,
it's ethanol is what tastes burning
yeah,
and
yeah.
the nose of burning and what the
Exactly.
chest burster is. That,
Yes. Yeah. And the
that's when it
higher,
gets down into your esophagus.
Like the higher the proof, sometimes, and sometimes there's some high proof stuff that you taste and go, wow, that does not taste its proof, and that's dangerous because you could be drinking it all night. And next thing
You
you know,
know, when I was much younger, I once had the opportunity. I've drunk white liquor
oh
in,
yeah, okay, yeah.
in the mountains of North Carolina,
Mm.
and the real some white liquor, it's just like it's kind of like there's no burn to it. I mean,
And it's probably straight alcohol at that point, isn't it?
I think it's pretty bad.
Gosh. Now, didn't you live in a commune in North Carolina?
I did. I lived in a commune community. I had my own place, but
Okay.
all
Mhm.
my neighbors were communes, and it was all kind of retro, back to the, back to the, back to the earth, and but also we did, I would play banjo, and I've been up into the mountains where where people have chickens in their house,
Sure.
and the outhouse is built over the creek. But
Wow.
you're talking the early '70s now in mountains of North Carolina, but they play music and drink white liquor. As a matter of fact, where I lived there, I had 20 acres, and I found stills in the woods wandering around, and even had a guy come up to try to and tell me that if I'd let him put a still in the back field, I could get some of the output. And he was in a low car, kind of way down with his mason jar. And I did learn how back then, the thing about white liquor, um, called, white liquor or moonshine in the South, and in the North, it's called moon.
Mm.
Um, but it was, one of the problems was is they didn't have plastic back in the 50s and 60s, so they used lead pipes, which which was
No,
poisonous.
I don't know. You know what's funny? I just got something out of this smelling it. It almost had a wine. I don't know. I just got something very familiar and I can't place it now, but it was almost winey to me. It just really briefly reminded me of a grappa, but I think it's
So
just
you're
that
going a little bit Argento here.
you're right.
You're just going a little Suspiria,
Yeah,
or
little.
deep red, or are
Maybe
you going all the
stamina.
way back to Mario Bava
Oh,
with
uh,
Black Sunday, or Lisa and the Devils? Where are
I
we?
prefer
Lisa and the Devils would be the most wine one, right?
yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, because Suspiria, now
I
you're
don't
getting
know what
into
I don't know what you're getting. You must be getting something Italian here. I don't know.
so if I'm getting grappa, I would say it's got an
No, no,
intensity.
you're stuck in Pumpkinhead, Bill.
I
Right? That's it.
That's true.
Here it is. Okay. Oh, okay. You
Yeah, so
already
it
told me.
yeah.
Smoke wagon.
Smoke Wagon straight bourbon whiskey. So that is, yep, 92.5 proof. And this is a standard product. So
And the
this is,
standard product, they mix it. It's like
yes, they
it's
mix it and they
they
try to get
mix
it
it until, because they want you to get the
exactly
same thing every time.
right. And if
But
they
people
want,
who were willing to pay
yeah,
more interested in having a new experience.
exactly. And they'll prove it to a point where they feel like that this expression of this whiskey is best at 93 proof or 100,
They
and that's
want every Friday the 13th to
they
give
want
you
them to be the
the same
same. They're trying to literally make
thing.
exactly the same
It's the
movie every time.
sequels. It's the sequels.
That's right. Nothing's
It's
going to change
the
too much.
IP. Yeah.
Right. Now, in the case of Smoke Wagon, they take the barrels and they age them themselves. They blend it themselves. They're doing work. They're starting off with juice that's already made, because if you wanted to start a bourbon company today, you're going to be waiting, a few years before you
Well,
get it.
it's kind of like if you're making my friend John Penny, who's a horror movie
Mhm.
writer and director, he makes his own wine up in Carmel Valley. They buy the grapes.
Yeah,
They buy a
exactly.
ton of grapes.
Right. So
Then they don't grow the grapes. They buy the grapes. Then they do their own. Then they mash them and put them in barrels and mix it. In May at the Cannes Film Market, um, 40 years ago, the first public screening of Reanimator was at the Star 2 Theater in Cannes during the market.
wow.
So we're going to rent it out and have the 40th anniversary because we have the 4K coming, as you
Yes.
all know.
Hmm.
And so I think it would be good to have a bourbon.
I like it.
I don't know what it would be called, but you know, it would take, but it would be a good idea, you know, just to have another kind of fun thing to do for the bourbon drinkers.
I like it. I mean, anytime, look, anytime I can mix my love of horror with something else that I love is great. We just put out a hot sauce because I love
Oh
hot
yeah.
sauce. So we worked with somebody to do it. So, anytime it seems to make sense, even when it kind of doesn't make sense, but I make it make sense, I say, why not? Have some fun. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Have a good time.
So number two. Okay, now well, let's look at the color first. It's
Yep.
really similar, actually. Maybe a little darker,
Slightly darker, I
a
believe.
little darker. It's a little less yellow. It's a little more caramelly, maybe.
So I will tell you one thing about this whiskey. If you're not familiar with the term, it's a bottled and bond whiskey. Do you know that term?
Tell me.
So this is it was the Bottled and Bond Act of 1897. And so back then, when they were making whiskeys, they would do anything to basically either add to the volume of their whiskey by either watering it down or adding tobacco juice to make the color different. Like there were no standards.
I have read that they used to throw everything into
Yeah.
booze.
So it was basically it was literally the Wild West and just, you never knew what you were getting. So the act was put in place to ensure quality. So that means it had to be made by a single distillery in a single season, aged of a minimum of 4 years. And it also had to
Single
be,
distillery in a single season.
yeah, so spring or fall. So harvesting the crop and getting it distilled within that season, bottled by a single distiller, and has a label that indicates the distillery. It had to, and they're all 100 proof. So this is a little step
And
up.
they can't add in
Correct.
how much flavoring is added into bourbon?
Well, in general, none. Usually, now there's flavored
You're
whiskey.
supposed to get the flavoring from the
Right.
barrel.
There are a ton of flavored whiskeys out there, don't get me wrong, but in terms of, I don't know if you want to call it fine whiskeys or whatever, there's going to be none. Now, the flavor will come out in the finishes, like if you finish it in a wine barrel or a, beer barrel or not you beer barrel, but like different whiskeys or woods actually. There's some woods like Amburana adds a real cinnamon flavor to the to the bourbon or whiskey that's put into it. Those are finished, but that you couldn't have a bottled and bond that's that way that I know of.
What are you getting from the nose here?
So the distiller that makes this, I'll tell you the distiller, but I won't tell you. So we'll have the reveal be in the envelope. This is a Buffalo Trace product. Now, Buffalo Trace is a huge distiller. I'm sure you've heard of them. They have a lot of brands under their belt.
I've drunk a lot of their low end stuff.
Right. So to me, this is a very classic Buffalo Trace smell, which tends to be like grapey to a lot of people. It's a sweet note.
So more importantly, which horror movie does this bring to mind for you in your personal experience?
So this is going to lean toward, you know what? The first thing that popped into my head was Return of the Living Dead because it's bright. It's got a sweet uh I don't want to say light, but what I mean is almost like a comedy to me. But it's got a little bit of bite to it. It's 100 proof. It's not, super low proof. It's obviously not high proof. I mean, Return of the Living Dead had some cool moments of gore in it, but it wasn't like super gory.
The sweet part is the gore,
Well, the sweet
in
part's
a
the
way.
gore, and it's got obviously it's a horror comedy, right? So it's funny. It's a good time. It's one of those you can put on, have a great time.
This is an entertaining bourbon.
Yes,
Came out the same year as Reanimator,
that's
but
right.
I think that Dan O'Bannon was the one who showed us how you do EC comics
Yeah.
on film. Because before that, when they do like Creep Show or something,
Hmm.
they thought the way you do comics is by putting Batman POWs in, or you do frames, or you do primary colors.
Right.
What he did was say, no, what you do is you have brain eating and you've got goof and you've got irony. And I
Hmm.
think once he did Return of the Living Dead, well, then Joel Silver could do Tales from the Crypt
That's right.
because Dan showed the way.
Yeah, definitely paved the way. That was absolutely, I think, a turn for what you could do with horror comedy, you know?
But you don't get any hints of tar here,
No, I'm not getting a lot of tar. I get some of the
right?
oak. Maybe it's from that tree oxen barrel that it was finished in, but I'm not getting a lot of tar. Um, I pictured this being what the general was probably sipping before he had to hit the button and destroy everything, but or maybe he sipped it afterward. Who knows? As a celebratory whiskey. Do you like it? What are you getting from it?
I do like it. I think it's really I don't know, I get a little cherry from it. I get a little fruity kind of
That's it.
flavor.
That's great that you said that. I mean, it's interesting because I think that fruity sweetness comes through. Like I tend to see it as a grape, but I think cherry's a good one. Um,
Well, it's
but it's that same
higher
idea,
proof. It's higher proof than the smoke wagon,
right?
but in a way, it's less hot tasting, and It feels rounder, or I
Hmm.
guess more, or maybe that just means there's more. It rhymes better with all the flavors or
I think,
something.
yeah, I agree. I think the extra proof helps balance it with again, I'm still getting a little bit of the spice to it, a little bit of peppery, but it's not overpowering. But there's more to it on the front end to me, whereas the smoke wagon, there's not much going on at first. The finish you feel more than you felt the beginning of it. This, I feel like you just said, it's rounder. You get it first. Okay, I taste the sweetness, maybe a little of the oak, and then it's like, oh, I get a little bit of that pepper spice on the finish, but it's not overpowering.
Number two, Colonel E.H. Taylor, small batch, bottled in bond, 100 proof.
That's right. So I don't know if the guy in Return of the Living Dead was a colonel, but that just made me kind of laugh.
What is this E.H. Taylor? Now, this is a brand from Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, so it started out Colonel Edmund Haynes Taylor. He began distilling around the Civil War time or the end of Civil War. In fact, I was at a place in Kentucky when we were at Horror Hound. They had E.H. Taylor from pre-Prohibition, or it was from I think it was from well, it was from 1933. So it was around that time. They had it was going for 30 grand a bottle. I mean, it was crazy. So
But
this
is bourbon okay to drink that old?
if it's if any air gets into it, which a lot of times, even with the seal, air can get in, it's okay to drink. It's not going to go bad in the sense of hurting you. This place I was at it was in Kentucky. We went across the border. It was right across the border from Cincinnati when we were at the show. They had a lot of old whiskeys you could drink, and it started from $5 a pour and went up to, hundreds of dollars a pour. But in terms of E.H. Taylor, like they were, again, those rick houses are what Buffalo Trace ended up being. So Buffalo Trace took over this whole property. Or E.H. Taylor was a dead brand, and I don't know when exactly they went. Was it post-Prohibition? I don't remember the timing. They revived the brand because they own the rick houses on their land where they aged the stuff. So they're actually aged in these same rick houses um, that were constructed by E.H. Taylor.
I smoke cigars.
Me too. Yeah.
Um, and I have smoked, I haven't done it for long, just for the last few years, I kind of really got into it. And I buy a lot of different cigars and
Yeah.
taste them. But I also I have a son-in-law who, I mean, yeah, son-in-law who is a professional skateboarder, and he'll come back from Havana and he'll bring me like cohibas,
Mm-hmm.
a case of cohibas, which in Havana you buy it for 180 bucks, but here it's going to be over 1,800 bucks for
Oh,
that.
yeah, absolutely.
But then I've also had um, a bunch of other Havana cigars,
Mm-hmm.
and especially the highest, which is Bejiques. Now I'm much more comfortable enjoying what is a cheap cigar. And I think the same thing goes with bourbon. Just because it costs, $600 a bottle,
Yep.
it doesn't mean it's going to necessarily be any better than the $60 a bottle if you know what your taste is.
I totally agree. I have a lot of bottles and they're varying degrees of price, and there's certain ones that I just love and I can get them for 50, 60 bucks all day. And they're fine. And or cheaper, There's some that I love that I spend a lot of money on. And it's funny you mentioned cigars. I'm a big cigar smoker, and I had the pleasure of having a Bahique once. I was at a cigar shop in Chicago, near Chicago. I was visiting a friend of mine. I was by myself having a cigar and sitting there, and these guys were talking. I'd never been there in my life, obviously. And I just started, talking to them about cigars. And the owner, I don't know if he was Cuban or not, but he goes to Cuba a lot. And we were talking about just what you were saying about Cubans and how inconsistent they've been in recent years. And I feel like quality control in other places like Dominican and Honduras have been so, in Nicaragua, have been so on point. Because I remember smoking at the height of the cigar boom in 97, 98, and the quality was all over the place with everybody because they couldn't make them fast enough. These days, you get 10 cigars or a box of 20, and you're going to pretty much get a great cigar every one of them.
But then the question I wanted to ask you was, as we pour number three,
Yes.
is would we have tasted these things differently if we smoked 3-2-1 instead of 1-2-3? I mean, once you start drinking, do you still get that virgin palate?
I
Or
think
do you start losing that?
I think you get a sweet spot. I think in this case, because we're only having three and it's not a ton of whiskey, we're still good. But I think you need
Yeah,
this.
I did notice you were a little skimpy. Just a little, I
Okay,
mean, for a guy
next
that's
one
got hundreds of bottles of whiskey, I mean,
next one I'll send you a lot
you
more.
were just a little
Look,
bit skimpy.
next
Look
one I'm
at
going to
that.
send you
Come
more, and
on,
we'll have a
man.
cigar with it too.
What is this, cognac or what?
This one is the most special one,
Uh-huh.
and I want to get your. I can't say too much about it without revealing it. But this is the one I really wanted you to have. This is one I wanted to have with you. This is one that I do not take out very often. This is a very special whiskey. And I thought it was apropos not only to drink with you, but there's a certain reason for it. And I'll get into that when we.
Okay, it's very much more caramelly, the
Yes,
color.
agreed.
But what horror movie would you liken it to in terms of how special it is?
Well,
Not necessarily that it's, that the nose is bringing, but and how would you identify it in terms of is this real classical? Is it very modern?
the
I mean, it's
reason
got to be a special.
the reason I picked it for you is it because, and I think this is the answer I'm sticking with because this is the reason why I picked it for you, is this is Reanimator in a glass. And
Okay.
I do think based on what we're talking about, it fits. But at the same time, I picked it for a different reason, and I don't want to reveal that just yet. But I did pick it specifically for you within mind, with Reanimator in mind. But as we're discussing the nose and how we talked about the sweetness of the Return of the Living Dead, the each Taylor, I think that applies because we talked about the comedic elements of Reanimator, and I think this has
Well,
that
it's,
sweetness.
it's very rich.
It is.
It's very, I mean,
I think it's darker.
it's not overwhelming. It
No,
definitely is darker by
which,
color
if you
and
ask me,
how it's made.
Reanimator's a darker comedy than Return of the Living Dead. It's
Yeah.
it's more biting in the sense that it's got some things in it that you just wouldn't see in a normal horror, let alone horror comedy.
I think it's a little more organic because of Stuart Gordon's theater background.
That's fair too. Yeah.
It's a much more contained and
Yep.
organic, rich
Yeah.
movie. Dan O'Bannon was, I mean, fantastic.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
cute, it's the crazy, it's
But there's
whatever.
so much going on Return of the Living Dead, whereas you're right,
This
Reanimator.
is very, very localized.
Yeah. Now
So,
there is
so
a
is this what you're going to be going for the Fright-Rags Reanimator 40th anniversary bourbon?
if I can get some now, again, I can't give too much away until you open the envelope, but if I could get something like this, it would be hard to because there's a quality to this. Now, I don't know if you can smell it. There is a quality to this that is present in whiskeys like this. And again, you'll know more when we discuss it. We should taste it first, then open the envelope
Well,
so we
this
can
is
talk about
very deep. It's very deep.
it.
This is the abyss. This is James
Yeah. Okay,
Cameron's
that's
abyss,
a good one
right?
too. Yeah.
It's like
Yep.
we're going down, down, down to the forbidden zone,
Yeah. But give it a taste. I don't think it's gonna be too proofy for you.
Not at all. I mean, I don't get a burn at all. I
'Cause there's
mean, the back of my throat, I get a little burn, but it doesn't have that ethanol.
nope.
I mean, the first one we did, the Smoke Wagon, had a very overwhelming, but then again, it could be because it was the first one.
That has a lot to do with the first whiskey of the
It was
day,
the
you know.
first,
Yep.
and you kind of go,
Yep.
but I don't get it from the nose.
The
I don't get it from the taste.
the palate on this it is, I would say this is a good example, in my opinion, is that the aroma is probably richer than the palate. But there's a reason for that. Um, well, tell me what you think about the palate and the finish. What are your first impressions?
The palate and the finish.
Yeah, when
In
you
the
first,
nose, I get some roses.
hmm, okay, I could see that.
I think the most dominant sense to me is how rich it is. It's really just,
Yeah. Well, I want you to open the envelope and
and
find out.
that is kind of like a reanimator thing. Because hey,
Yes, I think so. I got
it's really, as time goes by, I think we recognize more what Stewart did.
I agree. I think it's almost like it's layered, right? And you can appreciate it when it first comes out, and then after, the years as it ages, you get a more of appreciation for it every time you go back to it. And that's why I picked this one. So open it up and find out what it is.
Here we go, number 3. Wild Turkey 101, 1985.
This is a 1985 Wild Turkey.
Well, I've drunk this before,
So
and as a matter of fact, I have a I mean, a 2024 right here.
Amazing. There you go. I got one too. We should have some of that too and do them side by side.
Well, that's amazing. I'm gonna have to do the new one alongside it. I mean, 1985, this is the 40th anniversary of Reanimator here.
That's right. So this is 40 years old.
So
I'm gonna get mine too.
I'm just gonna take a little 2023 or 24.
Yep. I'm gonna do the same thing. I have my Wild Turkey, which is pretty much a brand new bottle.
Okay, now look at this.
Yep.
Look, the richness on the 85 is
Mhm.
remarkable.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
new one is more, it's kind of more fade, or it's a more ochre. This is
Yes.
very rich.
Yep. More amber. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. You can absolutely tell. I think the newer
Richer
one,
nose, a much richer nose.
yeah, the newer one has a nuttier nose, almost like a peanut, which is weird. That's usually a beam thing. I will say this 1985, I have two 1985 Wild Turkeys. When I bought the second one, Jeremy, the guy you met at the show, he and I went in on a bottle of 1985 Wild Turkey because we love the movie Silver Bullet that has Gary Busey in it, and he's drinking Wild Turkey in it, and it came out in 1985. So we watch it. Jeremy and I will do a virtual watch of this movie every year. So we bought a bottle of 1980 because he's huge into bourbon, as you know. Bought a bottle of 1985 Wild Turkey, split it, and he came to my house. He was on a business trip, so he came to my house for a couple days, and we had this, and we were like, this is amazing. We need to get another bottle of this. We bought a second bottle of 1985 Wild Turkey, opened it up. It was not nearly as good as this.
Oh, really?
It wasn't. It wasn't the same. It was fine, but it wasn't as good as this. This was like,
But Wild Turkey, even in 1985, this is a huge production.
absolutely. It was one of the biggest.
Mammoth.
Yeah,
It's a
I don't even know how many bottles they
so
made a year.
How,
Oh yeah.
how consistent can it be?
Yeah. But back then, nobody was buying, like, the thing about their process back then when they batched, because bourbon wasn't a popular thing, they were batching old bourbons. Like, it might be 8-year old, but when you have an age statement on a bourbon, it is the youngest, or the youngest a bourbon in it has been. So
I can only say that this 2024 Wild Turkey 101
mhm.
is pale in comparison. I mean, pale.
Yeah.
And you knew I was a Wild Turkey guy, right?
I remember talking to you about it.
You got that because of
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah. So there was that.
This is it comes up, it just comes up so second place.
Which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with this, but this,
well, after you've done this,
yeah,
you kind of go, what?
I think the difference, again, I think they probably mixed in a lot of older barrels because they didn't know what to do with them back then. So they mixed them in. And I think the age on it,
Maybe that's what it is.
yeah.
And the thing is that I got into Wild Turkey in the mid 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So who knows what it was then?
It could have been.
I got into Wild Turkey along with Rebel Yell.
Oh yeah, Rebel Yell. Oh my goodness.
Because I was a hippie, and
Yeah.
where I lived, you had to go to the alcohol beverage control store, a government
Yep.
store, to buy booze.
Yep.
And they had a bulletproof glass and then a drawer, right? It was so controlled, and you couldn't buy a mixed drink. You had to join a club, bring your bottle, they'd put it in a locker, and then they would make the drink for you.
My God.
This is
Wow.
I'm talking about the South,
Hmm.
right? I went to high school in Georgia, and I lived in North Carolina in the 70s. So I got into Wild Turkey then, and I'm starting to think maybe this is more like what got me into it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
God, this seems so bland.
Yeah.
You just ruined this whole. This is like the Howling 2 or something.
Wow.
This is Evil Dead 2.
Wow.
Wild
Yeah.
and furious, you know.
Yes.
Hey, listen, this has been a revelation.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad.
It's kind of like this is the sequel,
Yeah.
but let's do this again.
Absolutely. And I thank you for inspiring me to do this and being a part of this. And it was really an honor to share this with you and talk about this. This has been great. As it was in March when we got
My
together.
favorite is the Reanimator 101. And I think we need to get together and do the Reanimator bourbon for the 40th anniversary.
I agree. I'm gonna start talking to my friend about that and see what we
Start
can do.
thinking about it. We need to make
Yes.
a big promotion, maybe
Yes.
in Cannes in May,
I
the
like it.
launch.
I like
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you
This
so much,
is
Brian.
fun.
Take care.